the kick-ass switch, putting the K in magic. I'm Joanna DeVoe, and you are watching the third and what will be the last, for now, video in the Shadow Work series. And this video is called The Dark Side of the Law of Attraction. And the reason I wanted to call it that is because it was very important to me that I follow up the videos that I did on the law of attraction with shadow work. A lot of people are mistaken about what the law of attraction, the principle of like attracts like means. A lot of people think, and it's not their fault, they think this because most of the books on the law of attraction and the movies and stuff teach them this. They think that it's all about positive affirmations and creating vision boards and holding a really good vibration that is in alignment with whatever it is they want to manifest. But the truth is, it's much more complicated than that, and that's because your subconscious thoughts, especially your subconscious emotions, are far stronger than any thought or emotion that you're having on the surface. So until you do some really deep shadow work, those are the things that are going to be attracting whatever is coming into your life. So you might even be really good at the law of attraction at first, and you might bring some of the surface desires into manifestation, but then ultimately you end up self-sabotaging yourself. I talk a lot about that in Hippie, Peace, Love, and all that good shit, the free ebook that you can get on my website. And that's because it frustrates me that the law of attraction crowd really misses the whole point of what self-love is and how it's about embracing yourself in your entirety, including your shadow side. It's not just about putting on a happy face and only presenting to the world the very light and love part of yourself. It's about fully accepting and integrating the darker aspects of yourself as well. So hopefully you watched the first two videos in this series and we're all caught up to speed, because now I'm going to talk about what to do once you can identify your shadow, or at least some of your shadow aspects, and you're able to notice when something triggers you or when you're having a projection on someone else. Hopefully you've started compiling a little list of repeat issues that you've started to notice in yourself, because what I want to talk about now is how to spend some time doing the shadow work and really delving into what has created those repeat issues and how you can get a handle on them. And let me re-emphasize two very important things. One, your shadow is not all bad. There are so many gifts in your shadow, and it is by embracing your shadow that you can learn to tap into those gifts. So it's not all dark and scary, and it's not all bad. And a really quick way to notice a part of your shadow that contains gifts that you haven't been able to tap into yet is to think about somebody that you greatly admire, and you just think they're so amazing and you wish your life could be like theirs, and they consistently impress you. Whatever it is that impresses you about that person, whatever it is that you admire, that is a projection. You are projecting something that you have within yourself onto that person. So that's a clue, and it's a very good sign that you're hovering right over a special gift that you can develop in yourself that's already laying there latent and waiting for you to notice it. The second thing I want to say before going on, or that I want to repeat, is that you do not want to get rid of your shadow. You cannot get rid of your shadow, no matter how hard you try. In fact, the harder you try to suppress and get rid of it, the more it's going to keep popping up against your will and making little surprise visits that leave you embarrassed and ashamed and guilty and regretful. So you're going to have to deal with it and make friends with it and learn to love it and give it a little bit of attention so it stops acting out. So the first thing that you can do to work on your little list of repeat issues, or maybe your big list of repeat issues, whatever the case may be, is to find a nice quiet spot and set aside a good chunk of time where you can really study the list and pick out just one issue that you think is urgent or that you think is the most prominent or the one that's giving you the most problems. Shadow work is a lifelong process. You are never going to tackle it in one sitting, so don't even try. Just see it as a game, be gentle with yourself, and just take it one issue at a time. Okay, now that you have selected one issue to work on, one repeat issue that keeps popping back up in your life, take that issue and think about one glaring situation that comes to mind regarding that issue. One moment that just really makes you cringe, or that you tend to like have flashbacks of and try to like push out of your mind. Pick one moment where that issue really reared its ugly head and kind of just examine that moment and ask yourself, how did I participate in this situation? Now, this has nothing to do with blame. It is not about how did you bring the situation onto yourself, whether you did or whether you didn't. It's about how did you participate. So when you're imagining that scenario, you want to ask yourself, did I freeze up? Did I get aggressive? Did I act whiny and complainy? Did I just opt out of the situation altogether and hide? Did I get really, really forceful and combative? How did I deal with that situation? How did I participate in that situation? And maybe how did I participate in the creation of that situation? So once you can identify that, look at the other situations that involve that repeat issue and see if maybe you didn't act in a similar way in each of those situations. So if you are a person who has been bullied a lot in your life, maybe you were bullied as a kid and then bullied by like the mean girls in high school, and now you're married to somebody who bullies you around, or you're in a job with a boss that you feel is kind of bullying toward you. Even if you think it's a minor version of bullying, it's still bullying. It's still presenting itself in your life. How do you deal with that bully when they start to try to push you around? Do you just acquiesce and let them do it? Do you do what they say because it's easier or too scary to confront them? Or do you really push back and try to flex your position and not let them bully you around? Do you let them bully you around but then spend a lot of time bad-mouthing them and having fantasies of revenge? How do you deal with that? So once you've established that, then comes the really scary part for some people, and that is going into your childhood memories and finding a time when you felt bullied and when you were reacting in the way that you react now. It is in our childhood that these patterns are created. It is in our childhood that the shadow is born. So if you are really honest with yourself, if you are really willing to dig deep and you get yourself into an emotional state thinking about a current situation or a recent situation, hopefully you can trace that feeling back to a feeling that you had as a child. And then you can do some work parenting yourself. You can work with a therapist. Would be a really good idea to find a Jungian therapist, someone that understands shadow work. Or you can do a lot of journaling. In Hippie Witch, Peace, Love, and All That Good Shit, I have a chapter called Go F Yourself, and it's about forgiving yourself and writing yourself a letter of forgiveness. You can also do that for a person that you feel has perpetrated some bullying or abuse or something that damaged you in some way. Someone has perpetrated that on you. You need to learn how to forgive them. But most importantly for most people is you need to learn how to forgive yourself. So once you've traced that trigger, that repeat issue, once you've traced that all the way down into your childhood, you just want to imagine yourself as a little child, and you want to, if you're really good at visualization, maybe you can visualize yourself picking that child up and hugging them and allowing them to cry, or get mad and explain what they're upset about or how they were hurt, and just really give a voice to that little inner child inside. This really isn't about dwelling in the past or beating up on your parents for your terrible childhood. Even if you had a terrible childhood, it's not about placing blame with your parents. If you get better at shadow work, maybe further down the line, you can even learn how to forgive your parents and have compassion for them. But it's not about hanging out in your childhood and feeling sorry for yourself. It's just about identifying the point in which one aspect of your shadow was formed and then working with that. Something that you can do is give that child that you remember being, give your inner child a name. So since I'm Joanna, I would give my inner child a name like Little Joe or Joanny. So whenever you notice yourself engaging in that shadow behavior, whenever you notice yourself acting impulsively or speaking impulsively or triggered in that way, hopefully you have enough wherewithal to notice it as it's happening, and then you can just tell yourself, oh, that's just Little Joe doing her thing. Little Joe wants some attention, and you can name it so as to take, you know, the charge out of it and to really cut it down to size and to notice, oh, that aspect of my personality is trying to make itself known. If your shadow has a habit of coming up around certain situations, like food-related issues, you might want to name it like Mr. Munchie or the Foodie, something kind of funny and cute to take the piss out of it. You know me and humor. I think humor is an amazing tool, and I use it as much as possible, so you might want to name your shadow Tricky Pete, Scary Mary, Teeny Meeny, Big Bertha, Storm and Norman, the dog. It doesn't even have to be like a character name. It can be an inanimate object. When I was first dealing with some anger issues that I had, I noticed that whenever I would be like acting really impulsively out of anger, I would get this feeling right around my forehead and my head, this like tightness. So I named it the headband of rage, and I told my best girlfriend about it, and I told my husband about it, and we joked about it and laughed about it, and it made it so the next time the headband of rage went to present itself, I was able to, if not laugh at myself in the moment, which was not easy in the beginning, I was at least able to be like, ugh, it's the headband of rage, and then kind of like deal with why? Why am I wearing the headband of rage, and what can I do to take it off? So you can name an actual inanimate object that matches the feeling that you're having, and that can be helpful as well. Debbie Ford, the author of The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, among other books, she is an author who has really devoted herself to shadow work and made the work of Carl Jung more modern and accessible for today. She talks about how she, when she was first learning about the shadow, she always saw herself as a really positive person and a do-gooder, and she really, really tried very hard to be a good person, and she was at a seminar, and I forget what the lady who was running the seminar, she asked people a question, and she stood up and to answer the question and said something about, you know, wanting to make the world a better place. And the lady that was running the seminar said, "You're a bitch." And she just like froze, and she said her first thought was, "How do you know?" Because she knew deep down inside that she was a total bitch, but she didn't know like that other people could see it, and she was totally mortified. And then she goes on to explain how she learned how to see the good qualities in being a bitch, and to give her bitch, her inner bitch, room to do its thing on a healthy level so it wouldn't accidentally pop up at inappropriate times. And one of the examples she gave was, wouldn't it be good to be a bitch if you had hired a bunch of contractors to remodel your bathroom and they said it was going to take 2 weeks and then they started running into overtime and making a lot of excuses. Wouldn't it be helpful to be a little bitchy in that moment? You can start to reframe these qualities for yourself and to give them jobs to do, to keep them busy so they don't feel the need to act out. And I know I'm making you sound like, you know, Sybil and like you've got all these multiple personalities inside, but in a way you kind of do. I know, so do I, we all do. This work is not new. Carl Jung did coin the term, the shadow, but it is as old as humanity, and you can find it all throughout our old myths, all the ancient myths. You can find it in the Bible, all religions, Satan and God, good and bad. These are just the light and dark aspects of humanity, of us. And we have anthropomorphized them and cast them into these opposing roles in religion. And in my opinion, the lie of the law of attraction, the popular law of attraction message right now is that you can somehow get rid of your shadow, you can somehow get rid of your ego and be all light and love. Do not believe that lie. It is a recipe for disaster. It will feel good for a minute, you will be up and running and you will feel very positive, but then you're only just going to build more guilt and more shame as you find that you cannot maintain the light and love all of the time. Shadow work is the key. And I could make so many videos on this. I could just do a shadow work channel. That's why an author like Debbie Ford has been able to write several books on the topic and devote her career to that. My career is not going to be just about shadow work. I want to present a well-rounded idea of how to live a kick-ass life holistically, how to create the life of your dreams. So this is it. I'm just going to present these 3 videos for now. I'll probably visit it next fall. But in the meantime, if you do want to spend more time on shadow work, I highly recommend The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, like I mentioned, and Connie Zweig's Romancing the Shadow. I also really like some podcasts that Robert O'Hotto, I think that's how you say his name. I will put a link in the blog post down below. He did some podcasts on shadow work that I think are very interesting and groundbreaking. I just like his work in general, but one word of caution, he does archive his podcasts after they've been up for a while, and then you have to pay for them. So if you want to listen to them for free, I suggest you hop on over there right away and download them onto your iPod and give them a listen. I hope that this series was helpful and that I gave you some good ideas to go dig deeper into your shadow and to find self-love for all aspects of yourself. This is about self-acceptance. This is about loving and embracing all the parts of yourself, not just the pretty shiny parts, but the dark, sad, scary parts as well. Shed a little light on them and maybe they won't be so sad and scary. Maybe they will become allies at some point. You never know. So happy shadow work. Much love. Peace.